We are live, not Memorex. Some of you guys are probably not even old enough to know what that means. So, so we're live, kind of across the board here. As some of you guys are aware, I've been doing these just kind of round robin chats with some big influencers in and out of the network marketing space, and just having, I don't know, just kind of a casual conversation with people that I have respect for. And today I've got my buddy Dan McCormick. Dude, what's up, man? How are you?
Good to be with you, man. It's been a lot of years, a lot of water under that bridge between the two of us.
Wow. Yeah. It's in fact, speaking of, like, I'm pretty sure the first time that I heard you was on a conference call in like 93 or 94. And I distinctly remember, first of all, I remember your energy. Like, you had this like amazing, like, first of all, when I call you, I'm like, how you doing? You're like, I'm having the greatest day of my life, like that. But when you say that, I actually believe it. Right.
Yeah.
And the energy, I just remember, like, I'm on this conference call and there's hundreds of people on there, and the energy that you were putting out, I was like really attracted to the energy, which also kind of goes to show it's like important to, bring out that energy. But then you were mentioning like Og Mandino, The Greatest Secret, Greatest Salesman in the World. I'd never heard of that book. I'm pretty sure you talked about As a Man Thinketh, Richest Man in Babylon, like those three books, like bing, bing, bing. And I'm like one of those dudes that's going to like, oh, I'm going to go buy those books. So like literally that, and this is like pre-Amazon. So I think I had to go to the bookstore. I ran to the bookstore and got all three of those books, man. So yeah, dude.
It's great. I was thinking about that because I figured that you and I would cross that bridge. And I was saying to myself, what could I say possibly to somebody that might be listening, to somebody that's on the journey, so somebody that would like to get more out of it? And I'd say to myself, what if I said something so absolutely outrageous as to never read a book again? People might just say, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I would say, don't ever read that book again. But it's fine to study it. Like, truly get everything out of it. It's like in one of my other businesses, I've got a group that just likes to do the book of the month. And I'll ask people, okay, so what'd you get out of that book? Well, I bought the book and I listened to it. I don't remember. So what's the point? The point is, don't read a book. Study something. If it's worth your money, there's one author out there that wrote a book. And he wrote this book. And he said to himself, he said, you know what? I don't care who buys it, but it's $100 for this paperback book, because I don't want you buying it to just put it on the shelf and not taking, any interest in it. So I say, don't read a book, but study a book. Make it something that's a part of your vernacular, part of your brain, something that really builds some strength inside of you. And hopefully right out of the gate would give someone I think the original distributor that I work with in the industry, Craig Tillotson, he's fond of this thing called pattern interrupt. So maybe pattern interrupt, right? Bam. Don't read a book, study it.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a great pattern interrupt. It's funny. I was talking to Rob Sperry yesterday, Rob, and we were talking about Pirates Cove, and I was like, oh yeah, that place is crazy, man.
Yeah, crazy. Craig's house. If anybody needs to see that place, just type in Pirates Cove in Las Vegas area and type that in on YouTube, and you'll see a treat.
Yeah, there's like literally no house on the planet like it. It's crazy. Yeah, man, it's interesting. Like, you talk, like, books are so cool because they're so cheap. Right? Cost you nothing, like $10, $20. You mentioned $100 book. I'm wondering if people actually spent $200 on a book or $300, like if they'd actually maybe study it, rather than like I've been guilty, man. It's not like every book I've ever bought I like dug right into. It's like, oh, it's just getting dusty on my desk. So,
well, let me give you an example of that, because here's a book that I never studied. Okay, but yet it's one of the greatest lives that I've ever lived. And so when you think about Benjamin Franklin, there's something I have studied. There's something that I did take away from the book. I got what I wanted out of this book. And I learned that that's who Og studied, okay? And when he did the scrolls, all right, he figured, well, Ben Franklin had the idea, let me take these 13 virtues and study one a week. And he did it for 64 years of his life. And so that's a powerful concept. So no matter what I got out of the first paragraph or the last paragraph, what I took away was consistency. Can Dan McCormick be consistent enough, have that energy you spoke about in 1993? And I honestly don't know where I got that energy. It's just fun to kind of have an enthusiasm for life and an energy and a zest and an interest in other people. And how about one more? I just pulled a couple books off my shelf before we started because I knew we'd talk about books. How about when COVID hit? First book I went to. Why not study that? Why not just drink out of that faucet right there and find out what is the true search? What is the meaning of it all? And so anyway, I thought that'd be a fun start for us as a pattern interrupt. Don't read these.
Study them. I know, like this is the newest one I've got right here on my desk. This is $100 million offers by Alex Hormozi. So interesting read. I'm like just barely gotten into it, but you know, and then I got a stack over here. Always on my desk, I've got Jack Canfield's Success Principles.
Oh, so good. You know, I got that. I have that on my shelf right over here too. Love it.
Yeah. What else I got here? I got Wooden on Leadership. I got Robert Cialdini, Influence Psychology of Persuasion.
Big.
Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
That was a big book for me in 1991-ish, if I recall.
Dude, when I didn't even know about that book until I was going to I was in LA for a month living there, and I was going through all this NLP, master's NLP certification, Ericksonian hypnosis, presentation and platform skills training. And then, so I literally spent 4 weeks down there, like going through this hardcore stuff with like Christopher Howard companies. This is like 15 years ago. And it was interesting because one of the things like that he does, like in teaching, like if you're teaching, like how to like solidify a lesson, there's something like that that's called a looped metaphor, where like I start telling you a story, and then while I'm telling you the story, I start to go into a second story, then I go into a third story, and then I'm like, oh, let's talk about what we're going to learn today. And then you go into the whole teaching, and you're like, wait a second, he was just telling these stories, but you immediately go into what he's teaching, and then at the end of it, he finishes the three stories. So they loop these metaphors. It is so interesting because I've applied that speaking, and like you just the people hear it, they learn it, they remember it more than just if you go out and you teach and train. The reason I share that is because when I didn't even know about the book, The Alchemist, he was telling the story, and and I was like mesmerized by this story, and he kept looping it through all these trainings. And then we got to the end of the day, and I found out it was The Alchemist. So I didn't even know that he was telling the Alchemist story, and it was like told over like a 12-hour day in the seminar. It was crazy.
You know, it's interesting. Occasionally, I'll do a little research to see who does really well when it comes to people that sell their books on Amazon, and they have all those reviews. And if you look at Paulo Coelho and the reviews on that book, that'll say, hey, that's a successful book, like right there with the best of them of all time.
Yeah, and I think I remember reading the story about like when he first wrote it, like nobody wanted it and got denied. But then that also goes to like the subject you said, like consistency, right?
Yeah.
You know, just hammering. I mean, I think there's a lot of stories. Like, I mean, Walt Disney was, you know, you're not creative. Like some of the stuff these people, I think what Michael Jordan was like kicked off of his junior high basketball team, or So let's go back really quick, because not everybody, and when I do these conversations, I don't do this full on, you know, accolade. This is just like we're just having a chat, but I also want people to kind of know like your background. I'm going to give some of it, and then like I want to just kind of hear from you. So just so you guys know, so Dan and I met like I think probably 93, something like that. He's also a Seattle boy, born and raised in Seattle, tennis player. Got started in network marketing. I don't know. You can probably I think in the 80s, probably 86, 87 or something like that. I remember your wife was like the first distributor in Herbalife in Canada or something like that. But, you know, this guy's been around the network marketing space for as long as I know pretty much anybody. And the thing like Dan that I respect about you so much is like, you're in the game, and you're stayed in the game and never left the game. And you're, you know, the consummate promoter. You always have an amazing attitude every single time. I've never once talked to you and you're having a bad day. And I'm sure there's got to be days where it's not so great, but like, dude, like you make me feel good every time I talk to you. When I'm done, I feel better than beforehand. So, massively successful as an entrepreneur in the network marketing space. And I'm just like, for some of the people, like when you meet successful people, or at least when I meet successful people who achieve some greatness and whatever it is, like, I'm like, dude, how did you do it? Like, where did you start and how did you make it happen? Like, I think that's like, I don't know. I think that's a beautiful quality, that being super inquisitive and curious and like wanting to know. So I'm curious. We never had a conversation like this. We've just kind of become friends and chatted. But for the audience, like, that are long accolades of massive success in and out of the network marketing profession. How did you do it? Like, how did you achieve such massive success in the space?
Well, thank you. It's a great question, and hopefully I'll tie it into what that means to somebody that's starting today as I conclude that. So obviously the normal stuff you would hear is, you got to have a why and all that stuff. But let's take a deeper dive. Look, I grew up inside of this tennis club called the Seattle Supersonics Racket and Health Club on 144th Avenue in Bellevue, Washington. This club was the Seattle Supersonics Racket and Health Club, indoor tennis, racquetball, and I made $2.35 an hour. Now, it took $20 an hour to rent a tennis court. Now, we're talking 1975 when I first got that job, the summer of 75. Since I couldn't afford to pay for it, I needed the job because I was a tennis player. And so what happened was I saw people that had these careers and businesses, even though the entrepreneurial world was very different than pre-Microsoft. Boeing was the main company that ran the economy in the state of Washington back in those days. And lo and behold, I just had this insatiable appetite that first it was to be a professional tennis player because that was glamorous and fun. I loved it. And I knew I wasn't good enough going to college to do that. I went to Washington State University. Had an incredible career, path to financial independence as a job. $2.35 an hour, and 3 years later, I was at $3.65 an hour. And then this guy that's an entrepreneur built tennis courts. He invited me to work for him, and he was a really good father figure. My dad was never a father figure in terms of work ethic, how you treat people, honesty, integrity, hard work. And Don was that guy for me. And he paid me $5 an hour. So that was a massive jump. And then I went off to Washington State University, and I finished in 2 weeks. Now, that was critical because most people call that dropping out. But, I mean, that was a real blow to what was I going to do with my life. I didn't know. But I had this sense of what my mom said. And she said, son, you better make a lot of money when you get older. Now, oftentimes parents will say, hey, money doesn't grow on trees. But my mom said, son, you better make a lot of money. So subconsciously, I felt like I was going to make a lot of money. I didn't know how, but when I saw that ad in the newspaper and I married my wife 9 months after we met, and she was the first distributor for Herbalife in Canada. And lo and behold, we passed our first million at 22. Now, that culture was Jim Rohn, Mark Hughes, and Larry Thompson. So you sat in the front row with Jim and Mark and Larry. You got your notebooks out. You're taking notes. And you know that those guys were the icons. They wanted you to win. But they wanted you to win because you wanted to win, and they wanted you to want it and teach it. It's funny. Larry Thompson and I were texting back and forth the other day. And he just said, man, I can't believe you still do this with the kind of energy you do it with. But here's why. I want to go to Jude 122 in the Bible. And so my 14th grandchild was named Jude. And so I thought, I'm going to read this book, the book of Jude. I want to know about my grandson. And there's one scripture in there if somebody wants to write it down in the chat or in the comments or wherever you might be. And some have compassion, ... making a difference. And I just think, is there a chance that my attitude makes a difference every day? Is there a chance that I meet that one person? Met a gentleman. I'm here at my country club up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, where I live in the summers. And there's a gentleman that just got through 8 years ago of addiction recovery. And I just gave him a big hug and said, congratulations. I said, I want to congratulate you and tell you about my experience with another friend of mine that's 10 years of addiction recovery. And I started going to the AA meetings, and I was very interested in how that program worked and what draws people in from the bottom, the depths of despair, of addiction, and pornography and food addiction and alcohol and drugs and all the stuff. And I really bought in on what this group made a difference to. And it's just great to make a difference. And you just never know who's having a tough time, a tough day. And we've both been blessed to have an income stream that's rewarded our families very nicely. And but above all the fray is, can I make a difference? And some have compassion, making a difference. So I hope that the person that starts today doesn't look at the 40 years that I've got under my belt and try to compare. Because whenever I go into comparison, I lose humility and I lose gratitude and I lose presence. So just be present right here, right now, no matter who you are, no matter where you're at. Nothing feels better than being with the present. I mean, I am so fired up that you asked me to be with you here today, because it's just fun never knowing if there's the one that we make a difference for. And so you may have a thought of something that I've said, but I've got a follow-up to kind of bring it all together. But I want to pause and let you comment.
No, go ahead, brother. I mean, I'm just, that scripture is beautiful.
So 40 years go by. And last September, my wife and I got an 8-year-old daughter down in Utah that's getting baptized, and I got a convention for my company. And I love golf, and I am in a comfortable rhythm. I am not traveling. I don't want to get on planes. I think you've told everybody in the world that I just didn't want to travel ever again anymore. I just love I literally right here to my left, no more than 20 feet away is Lake Coeur d'Alene, okay? And I said, I don't want to go to the convention. I don't want to go to Utah. I hate going through that Salt Lake airport. I hate the travel. And my wife just looked at me and slapped me, and she said, you're going. Okay, so here's what happened. I went to the convention, and I walk into the table where my assistant was welcoming people into a breakout meeting. And they were selling this book called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I had heard of it. I had seen it. But this is my guy. I don't want someone to replace my guy. I interviewed you on my podcast, The Greatest Salesman in the World, right? Yep. So I said to the counter, there was 2 ladies. I said, look, I'll buy the book. I'll buy the journal. I'll buy the workbook. But I said, I probably won't read it. And this lady looked at me and eyes went right through me. Dan McCormick hasn't read Miracle Morning? And I said, whoa. I said, I've been doing this 40 years. I just kind of have a rhythm. I get up, I read, I got my scriptures, I got my journals, I do my stuff, and I go off to the golf course and the workout, the bike rides, whatever. I came home that Sunday night, and isn't it amazing how what Jim Rohn said, ideas can be life-changing. And you only need one, but you have to execute on the one. So we're laying in bed Sunday night, September 12th, whatever it was last year. And in the very first page, he says he has a documentary. And I'm like, well, I don't want to read the book right now, but let's just turn on the movie. And everybody says to me, there's a movie? So I watched the documentary, my wife and I said, this is the real guy. Todd, I resonate with you. And, you and I hung out in June at the ANMP meetings. We resonate with certain people we know that are genuinely authentic. They're just the real people. Whether you and I are on this camera right now or we're not, we're pretty much the same people. And the next morning I woke up at 5 like I normally did. And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to trust it. I'm going to add more intentionality to my life. So I did it and I got lost in it. And it's like, he says, look, you can do this for 5 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour every morning, his whole Savers program. Now, I'm not going to give everything away. You got to go read the book, buy the book, etc. And so I got so into it, Todd, I was calling people, friends, people I hadn't talked to them. Have you read this book? I'm just trying to see if I can, what's good. I had people that are going, now, what happened to McCormick? We've been reading this book for years. And then I would ask him to tell me about the book, and they didn't study it. They read it, but they didn't study it. And so I started a private group on Facebook, nothing to do with network marketing, nothing to do with selling. I was just so into telling everybody about what a miracle morning was that I started this group, and there's several hundred people in it. And every Thursday morning at 5:43 a.m., I act as a reminder for anybody that wants to take that journey with me and what he did for 64 years. And so we remind everybody of what a miracle morning is and how these things play a role in our lives. And so I've been pretty lit up for about the last 11 months since I read it, September 12th of last year. Here we are, almost a year to the day, 11 months to the day. And I hope that people that are watching today, and because you're recording it, right? Someone might watch this 6 hours from now, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years from now. And hopefully I'll still be doing what I do because I love people. But I hope that someone will say, I can start with me. I can start with a morning, whether it's 5 minutes, 50 minutes, or 5 hours, and I can just start chipping away at those little things. And so I'm just fired up, and I don't sell anything there. I just try to be a reminder voice of the 7-day challenge.
Yeah. In fact, I think the last time we hung out, we were talking about the Miracle Morning. I didn't even know the movie existed. So I came home and I watched the movie. So, like immediately, and that's the way I am. That's probably the way you are for sure. Like somebody who's successful that you admire, you respect, and like, dude, you got to watch this or read this. I'm like, I don't even question it. I don't go, well, how much is it? Or how many of that, what can you give me more details? I'm like, I go buy it. And what's interesting is like, when you talked about not going to the event or not wanting to go to the event, I was actually I almost didn't go to ANMP.
Yeah.
And I was booked to speak at it. And I was just like, yeah, I've been enjoying kind of being at home. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go. I've spoken at so many events. And
exactly.
And I told my wife that, and she looked at me. She did that like peering through. And she's like, she did, man. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I just want to be home with my family. She goes, you're going to ANMP. And I was like,
wow.
And what was interesting, for me personally, like I remember, like, so I've been to like event after event after event for like so many years. And, then when COVID hit, like no events, like the Zoom doesn't replace it. So, and I had been to a handful of events post COVID, but not in the regular continuous routine that I had been. And I didn't realize, like I got to the AMP on whatever Thursday and me, I'm like roaming around, bouncing around, talking to people. And like, after being just around people, this before the event even started, I called Carla up and I was like, oh my gosh, like I have no idea how badly, like I needed this. Like my energy level, my passion, this, like, I just got like this, I just got fed before I even got fed from any of the speakers, just that environment. So, I'm so grateful that I went because I also not only did it do that for me, but I had a couple of conversations over that weekend that were, impactful in both directions, like a conversation that really positively impacted me. And then another conversation I had with somebody that was, that I know made a difference because I've, have had conversations with them since that chat. But yeah, man, like for you guys that are watching this, or, I mean, this will end up being on audio too, but, you definitely need to know about the Miracle Morning. And I don't know, who's that general guy? Like, I'm sure you've seen that speech. He's all dressed in white and, he's got his hat on, and I don't even know if it's called a hat because I'm not a military guy, but whatever, his thing on, his white uniform.
If you want to change the world, make your bed.
Yeah. I mean, It's so crazy. It's like that speech is so powerful. And he's like, start your day by making your bed. Yep, and absolutely. You got a task that you accomplished. You feel like, a sense of fulfillment. I got this done, rather than just get out of bed and go back into bed or, and I definitely I've been guilty of that. I've done, especially during COVID, I was getting up at 5:20 in the morning to go to yoga. And then when COVID hit, like there was no more yoga. And then after we were like allowed out of our houses again, I'm like, oh, I can't make it to the 6 a.m. class. So now I'm the 7:30 to 8:30 yoga guy now. So
yeah. I mean, some people get up at the crack of 10 in network marketing, they have a different lifestyle. And, but it's all good. But that's great. I'm glad that Carla said that to you, because it validates for me, and our listeners are listening right now, and they're wondering, should they go to their next event? And should they buy that next ticket? Should they get the plane ticket? Should they get the ticket to get in? Should they buy the 5 tickets to get a better price? Whatever the situation or the offering is, right? And the answer is yes, because it's people. When you connect with people, things change. Again, Jude 122, and some have compassion, making a difference. And that's a powerful thing.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you from my personal experience, the very first event that I ever went to, and I don't even know, I think it was like February of 1990 or something. I didn't have the money. I mean, it's so funny. It was $300 to attend this event. This is 1990.
Wow.
I didn't have the money. And I remember a guy said to me, I was eager, I was hungry. It was brand new. It was probably September, October, November. I was like maybe 5-6 months into my network marketing career. And the guy says, and this is a guy I had respect for that was successful in this office that I was working. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "Are you going to the event in San Diego?" And I was like, I didn't lie to him. I said, "No, I'm not," and he said, "Well, do you want to be a leader in this company?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he just looked at me with like these really stern eyes. And he's just like, "Well, you need to be at the event. Every leader in this company will be at the event. If you want to be a leader in this company, you need to be there." And he like turned and he just walked away from me. And I mean, it wasn't like, oh, did he really mean that? It was just a clear message. And it's not that I didn't want to go. I wanted to go. But then I figured out a way to make it to that first event. I, pinched and scraped around and figured it out. I actually slept in my car.
Wow.
I did a 1989 Toyota Corolla. So it was relatively new. It was comfortable, but I slept in my car. I didn't have a hotel room. I didn't really know anybody there hardly. But I remember going to that first event. And then for me personally, and I'm sure this is pretty similar for a lot of people in our space where, your friend signed you up in some business and you're thinking it's pretty cool. But then you're like, I don't even know how big this thing really is. And then you show up for some event and there's like thousands of people there. And you're like, wow, I had no idea. Like that was my first thought. I had no idea. I didn't, I just knew these people. But now I see hundreds of people. It wasn't even thousands. It was probably 600 or 700 people. And that to me made me like, I don't know, made me have a little bit more belief enough to hang out to play the game long enough to see some success. So,
yeah. And those days are cherished, right? Because we didn't have a phone in our hand. People brought cameras, but it wasn't like everybody brought a camera. It was a different connection, right? It was just like, hey, I'll see you again next month. You don't go to your room, turn on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, and see pictures and celebrations, etc. So that was a different time, a cherished time. And those are good memories to have for those events when you had to scrounge for a few dollars to get the hotel room and no Expedia, no Priceline.
Oh yeah, no, none of that, man.
Yeah.
And we used to in our they would give us workbooks in this company, and for taking notes through it, and we would all. I think I'm pretty confident that they taught us to do this, like connect with as many people as possible, and get their phone number. So my workbook was filled with names and phone numbers from all over the world. And it's funny because I still have those, and I'm like, I look through there, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this person. Oh, this person that's still involved in the profession. I mean, a lot of those people probably aren't, but I have like my buddy Brent's phone number from like 1990. Cool.
That's
so
cool.
Wow. But so what, dude? What are you working on that's got you excited? I know you're doing some stuff with Augmandino. Are you still doing that, or
we did about 44 episodes of The Greatest Salesman in the World. Is mostly people like you that I'd given the book to or talked about the book to. I didn't feel like that was my future. In number 4, Augmandino says, the 4 scroll says, I am nature's greatest miracle. So I started working on a book this year called I Am. And basically what we're doing is we're trying to get sensitivity to the power of language. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. When Novak Djokovic won his 23rd major championship in April of this year at the French Open, my daughter called me that Sunday morning. Bam, she said, Dad, did you hear what he said? Every thought, every word resonates in the cells of your body. So be careful what you say. And then I've been thinking about this concept of I am nature's greatest miracle. And so I started writing this book, and a lot of what I do on Thursday morning with the Miracle Morning is trying to help people with that. And I'm hoping to have that book out next year. It's in its second draft. We take people from addiction recovery, people that have dealt with debt, depression, suicide, network marketing upside down, so you can't even believe they're going to ever have a success, that have used affirmations in a way that resonates with them. And so I've spent a lot of time working on that. I'm really passionate about it. I think that no matter who's listening today, I believe that Exodus 15:26 plays a role in someone's life. And it says that I am the Lord that healeth. So that either you and I are healing, or we're answering the phone or making the call or the text for somebody that is. And I think that's really important in the day and age. Like me running into my friend yesterday up at the club that is celebrated 8 years of sobriety. So I really am excited about, as you know, my friend Nathan Ricks died in a plane crash on January 2nd of this year. I mean, you're talking about truly one of the more iconic people. I mean, we can sit here and look at our successes and we can talk about people that are successful, but when it's in the hundreds of millions, it's just so rare. And his success was that, probably doing roughly $1 billion a year in revenue in his downline. So when it came to my attention that one of his talks was called Be a Finisher, I made that there's a scripture in the New Testament that the Lord says, I am the author and the finisher. I am Alpha and Omega and those kinds of things. And so I made that number 7. Now, the 7th affirmation of each and every day for you and I, finishing the yoga class, finishing the book, finishing the Zoom, whatever it might be, Nathan taught us very, very clearly, be a finisher. And one of the greatest secrets in the world is to being a finisher. And you're great at this, Todd. You've had so many projects and books, and you've been consistent as all get out. You've been as consistent as anyone in the industry for so many years. But when Nathan said one of the keys to success, to being a finisher, is to don't start so many things. And that is so true, isn't it? How do we feel like when I think about Nathan telling me, because I know how good he was, I can't remember if you ever came to his ranch with me. Did you come to his ranch with me up there in Utah?
I think I was at, I don't know if it was at the ranch or his house.
Maybe his house, but
yeah,
he was intense. His diet was clear. His exercise was focused first thing. His scripture reading was first thing. And he was a finisher to every day. And I thought about that one day when I was listening to the talk. And I was on the bike. It was 130 degrees. I was in an infrared sauna. I like to work out at very high levels of heat. And you're sweating like crazy. I'm about 22 minutes in, and it's a 25-minute class. And I'm thinking, man, it's been a great workout. I could quit right here. And on my phone, I'm listening. Be a finisher. No, don't quit right now. I'm at 22 minutes. I'm going to go hard these next 3 minutes. I'm going to sweat even more. I'm going to get in even better shape. And so for our listeners today, if there's a great takeaway in life, I am a finisher. Write it down. Let it be a part of who you are. Relationships, businesses, exercise, everything you do in your life, I am. Now, let me finish by saying this. Here's what we found in our research. I, meaning exist. Am, meaning with God. I am a finisher. Jude 1:22. And some have compassion. Is there one more person out there today that I could make a difference with? Is there somebody I know that's struggling? A friend of mine just had a stroke, for example. So if I go a couple days without, saying, hey, buddy, how you doing? Praying for you. Is there another friend of mine who wrote a book called Unhooked, because he wrote a book on his addiction recovery. And candidly, I've never had an addiction problem. My greatest addiction is people. It's just so much fun to be with people. But if you think about that process of I am a finisher, is there one more person? Okay, I do this in my classes sometime, Todd. So take your phone right now. Let's just do something for fun. Take your phone. We're going to do a little project. So go to your contacts, and let's have everybody do this right now. And at the bottom of your contacts, there's a number sign. So hit the number and scroll all the way down and look how many contacts you have. Now I'm in the thousands. How many are you at?
7,000 even, actually.
Wow. Okay. So out of those 7,000 people, is there one person right there that hasn't heard from you in a while, that's going through cancer, that's going through relationship, going through finance, that could use it? You know who's really good at this? Tom Chanel, right? Like out of the blue, Tom Chanel will say, hey, I love you, man. Because the guy came from addiction recovery.
Yeah, this is something what we're talking about here, like going into your phone. looking at a contact and then just doing a reach out. That's something I've been teaching for years.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like, you know, we're in a business of connecting and relationships, and most people, most businesses have to do with relationships and how people feel about you. And as we all know, people buy and do business with individuals that they like and trust. And if I feel good about you, I'll do business with you. And you know, if it was a good experience, I'm going to continue to come back again and again. And so one of the things, like, I run these A teams, and I've been doing that since like 2008, as you know. And one of the exercises that we do in the middle of that is, like, literally take out your phone, go to the letter A, find the first person where it's been 3 months, 6 months, it's been a bit, you know what a bit is, a while, and just send them a text message. Say, Dan, Todd Falcone, what's up? Love to catch up with you. Yeah. It's been too long, in your own words. And it's crazy because I do the exercise to teach people, just like, take the business off the plate. You're not going to pitch them the business right now. It's just it's a legitimate, what I call emotional deposit, right? It's like a bank account. You can't take money out of a bank you don't put money into. So how do you make a withdrawal from an empty relationship account? And what's crazy is, number one, like, I mean, I've had people that haven't talked to somebody for 16 years and redeveloped a relationship, or somebody who just needed to have that phone call or that text message. It's mind-boggling. And I do it all the time. I mean, I just got done, before talking to you, reaching out to a handful of people on it. And I had a great conversation with my friend Ed, and it's been a few years, but we had a great reconnection. He told me what he's got going on in his life. He's got some amazing stuff going on. And it was just so cool to, you know, get together again. So, I mean, what's the sense of having all these phone numbers in there if you never reach out to those people?
Yeah. You know, and that's funny. You mentioned Rob Sperry's name earlier, and Rob, in his first book, because he was in my downline when he was doing really, really well as on the distributor side. And so he called me in his book. He says, Dan McCormick is a pinger. Like, if you haven't talked to Dan McCormick in 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, you're just going to get a text, say, hey, bro, how you doing? You know, messenger, whatever. So to your point, I really love what you just said there. And I think that has a lot of value, because there will be people in your phone that if you don't connect with them, and sometimes I just look at a number and I have to click on it and say, okay, where's that area code? I look on Facebook and I say, how did I know that guy? I go to Messenger and look at the thread. And I talked to a lady today I hadn't talked to in a long time. Talked to a guy on Facebook yesterday. Just doing that, just connecting for the sake of connecting. It's a fabulous journey.
So I'm going to give you a little one. So you ready? So, you know, this is when I do this exercise, and I'm like, hey, how many of you people have, you know, somebody in your phone named John or Sally or Barbara? And you're like, I don't even know who that person is. Like, it's just Barbara and a phone number. And everybody's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, well, I don't. And the reason I don't is because for years, like, when I meet a new person and I'm adding you to my phone, there's always notes where we met, how we met, who referred you to me, other important things that I wanted to remember. And then people are like, well, how do I call Barbara up if I don't know who she is? I'm like, send her a text message, to be honest. And say, hey, Barbara, this is Todd Falcone. You're in my phone as Barbara, but I don't even know what Barbara this is. Like, how do we not know each other? Which Barbara are you? You know? And it'll strike up, oh, we met at blah, 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 if she remembers who you are. But I mean, I think for people that are in sales and running companies and businesses, man, you got to know who the people are on the phone. So, I mean, I think you guys should all swear, never again in my life will I ever add a contact into my phone without putting notes on them. And that's been one of my greatest habits, man.
That is a great habit. That's a great takeaway. I actually just had one of my distributors call me, and I'm just sending him a photo of what you and I are doing right now because he loves you. So that's a great suggestion. That's a win right there. That's what I call a millionaire training tip, right? Those old
there you go.
That's
for sure. Hey, so two things I want to clue in on. Like, you talked about, you know, being a finisher, and I remember seeing that I've seen at least one of Nathan's speeches on be a finisher, which is really amazing. And not starting too many things. Like, I can say personally that nobody ever gives me projects. I give them to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to start this one. I'm going to start this one. And I've got like 7 of them. And then I'm like looking at 7 different projects. And I'm like, oh my gosh, when? And I literally physiologically, for me, like, I'll break out into like a cold sweat because I look at it as so much overwhelm. And I've had to learn that whole thing is don't start too many things. Finish what you started. You know, start a project, finish the project that you started before you start another project. And I've had to learn the hard way to do that, because I've actually given myself additional unnecessary stress.
Yeah. Interesting you say that. I had a lady on my show this morning, my Miracle Morningside show, who I just met. And, whenever you write a book or you talk about writing a book, you start meeting all kinds of interesting people. And so a friend of mine just wrote a book here in Utah, in Boise. I think he lives in Boise. And it's called Strength of the Willow, Strength of the Oak. Great guy, Andrew Anderson, great new book, first-time author. It's a grind if you don't have a huge following, et cetera. And he said, Dan, I just met this girl. You got to meet her, because I know you're writing a book about IM. And this lady started a pajama company, a clothing company for women. And she did research. And what are the 3 things that women want to hear? She found number 1 was, I am loved. And so she made pajamas that on the inside say, I am loved. And so it's so fascinating when you just start the one project that's passionate to you. Let the world manifest. You can write down the specificity of what you want to manifest from it. But it's an awesome thing to be on this journey and meet people. We've really covered some great stuff. And being a finisher every single day will lead. If you do that, so basically what my book is about is how to win the morning, how to win the day, and how to win your life.
Yeah, I think if you could do that, you're winning all the way around, right?
Exactly. Doesn't mean you don't have setbacks, disappointments, frustrations, sadnesses, business failures, emotional setbacks, etc. But at least you know where the starting point is to reset.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I'm sure there's people right now that are dealing with challenges, setbacks, obstacles, frustrations. Like, when is this ever going to change? And you can press the reset button any day you want, wake up and just treat the day differently. I think a person who's in that situation, the miracle morning would be a beautiful thing to start, and just because what that's all about. Like, how do you start your day?
Yeah.
No, I got to tell you, like, for me, like, we all have our routines, but like me doing yoga first thing in the morning has been life-changing for me.
I agree. Amazing.
It's literally the first thing I do. I get up. Well, I got to get out of bed, use the restroom, whatever, go grab my yoga mat, put my clothes on, but just having like 60 minutes of focus time on me.
Because you're breathing, you're present. Beautiful.
Yeah. Breathing and honestly, like, one of my biggest struggles in doing that is, and part of yoga is quieting your mind. Cause I'm already thinking about what this is going on. I got this meeting, I got that thing happening. And so I've had to learn to just like, okay, this is your time.
Yes.
Right now. It's only 60 minutes. And then what's crazy is I come out of that, I come home and I'm showered and ready to go. I'm at the desk and I just feel so much better when I move my body. I know you, like, you wake up every morning and like literally you weigh yourself every single day, which I think is awesome. Yeah. And you're like, if I'm like 1 pound off, you're like, okay, I'm not, probably me with Nathan too. And his very strict diet. Like, we were talking in Dallas and I don't know, what did you say? You're on some road trip and you guys were starving and you walked into an Applebee's, or no, what's the
Panera
bread?
Panera bread. Yeah. And they had a plate, and the lady welcomes you into the Panera bread. There's all this bread. And I am downright famished. And I grabbed a couple pieces of bread, and Nathan just looked right through me because he thinks bread is just one of the killers, right? And he just said, seriously, you're going to eat that? I'm like, dude, I'm going to eat this right now.
That's hilarious. I can see him doing that. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. So real quick on the, I'm interested to know, like, there's, I'm sure a lot of people that are like, hey, I got a story and I love to tell my story. I got this book idea and I'd love to write a book around this idea that I've got. You've written multiple books. Do you have a specific like routine that you go through in writing a book? Like, what's your process of like going from I've got an idea to putting it together and getting it done? Because I know I struggled with my first book. It took me 3 years to start writing and then 6 days to write it.
Yeah. I actually haven't written a lot of books. I did one book in 2008. It was a rewrite. I bought the rights to a book that was out of print, was only available for a short period of time in the early 80s with one of my mentors. It was called Lessons from Great Lives, based on the Hall of Fame for Great Americans. And basically what Sterling W. Sill did was he asked the question, if you were to create your own Hall of Fame, who would you want to mold your life after? And so he had his Hall of Fame. I went back to New York, went through the old Hall of Fame for Great Americans. As a matter of fact, for anyone that remembers the movie Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, that's where they filmed it, inside of that. It was just staggering. So basically the process is this. I am an ambassador for good. And I just thought to myself, when I go promote books, I like to reach out to the author and reach out to people that know them to find out, are they genuinely authentic and real? And so when I met Hal, we became fast friends, and we spent several hours together. We paid him to come out and speak to our company last month, and genuine giant. And then yesterday I just got in front of somebody. I'm going to throw a book out there. Maybe you can write this one down in the podcast notes or something. But I didn't know anything. And I know a lot of you are way ahead of me because I don't read a lot of books when I'm writing a book. But Dr. Benjamin Hardy just came out with a book not long ago, a year ago, called 10X is Easier Than 2X.
Ooh, I like that title.
Oh, dude, I got off the phone with him yesterday and I said, Ben, you're one of my new favorite friends, right? And we connected, we bonded. And I said, look, and so he started. So I've got some coaches that are trying to help me. Like Hal has helped me. Got another friend of mine that sold 40 million copies of books. I've got the former ghostwriter, the guy that actually helped Stephen Covey write 7 Habits as my co-author. And so we're in the process right now of, I have the draft done. Now it's refine it and ask the question, what does this phrase need to be in here? Is this word necessary? You know, I'm sure Hal had to go through that at some point in time to get it down to that many words. And Og sat at a typewriter and literally for months on end before he knew what he was going to write with those scrolls. And one night he was awake all night and just the heavens downloaded to him and wrote those scrolls all in one night.
Wow.
Try to write one of those scrolls, let alone all of them in one night. So that's kind of the process for me. I'm an incubator. I'm a processor. I continue to ask, is this beneficial in my life? And I am not a writer, so I like ideas, recordings, and then let my editor type people, transcribe, download, edit, etc. So that's kind of the process for me.
So do you actually, you'll be thinking about a subject and you'll record it on audio and then put it into writing? Or
I usually go to Facebook Live and I have a Facebook Live and then I have a file in my phone that is everything, every single note or file or video. I'll go to my note file for my I am statements. And I literally have everything from Elon Musk quotes to Eckhart Tolle quotes so just this entire file of just I am kind of stuff.
Interesting. I'm sure every author or writer has different ways of like going through their routine. I'm like a Post-it note freak when it comes to.
This is my Post-it note.
Yeah. So what I did, like what I've done is I'll take a subject, whatever the subject is, and then the subcategories of that subject, or I'll just start writing them down on these Post-it notes. And then I've got a wall and I'll just start like recategorizing them and reorganizing them. And it takes me a little while to do it, but then I've got the main subject, the subcategories of the subject, the subcategories of the subject. And then I stack them all up and then I start putting it on paper. I literally still have like when I did, this wasn't even for a book. It was for Cracking the Code of Success in Network Marketing, which is a really kind of intense training that I did on how to succeed in network marketing. I still have all the Post-it notes from that. And there was stacks of Post-it notes because that thing was like, I think it was like 27 CDs or something like that. It was like ridiculous. Like it's comprehensive, but I've got that in a file.
I got another book idea for everybody right now. And this is a great way to end what we're talking about if we're near the end. It doesn't matter if we are. So this guy comes over to my house and he brings me a gift. This was last year. And I knew Ryan Holiday's work. I hadn't read his work. I mean, I've just got so many books, right? And so Ryan wrote, Ego is the Enemy and several other books that are just New York Times bestsellers. And he actually was one of the research people for Robert Greene's 50 Laws or 48 Laws, or whatever it's called, that orange book. I have it at my other house. So anyway, think about your network marketing organization today. Think about what projects on your plate today. Think about what you're selling today and ask yourself, is it a perennial seller? In other words, what Ryan is asking you is what you're doing today going to make a difference 10 years from now? And I think about the products that you might sell, and I say, is someone going to use those products? Yes, they are. Is someone going to use my whitening toothpaste 10 years from now? Yes, they are, right? And it's just so, it's a really interesting thing is the book that you're working on, the project that you have, the relationship you have. He goes through and documents. Hemingway's quote is beautiful because Hemingway was just one odd character, right? The quote from Hemingway is, there's nothing to it. I'm going to paraphrase wildly here. There's nothing to writing a book. It's just sitting down at a typewriter to bleed.
Wow. Interesting.
Sitting down at a typewriter to bleed, because how many iterations and drafts do you go through before you get to something like that? So
I can't read that title because I don't have my glasses on. So what's the title of that book? Perennial Seller?
Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday.
All right.
The art of making and marketing work that lasts. And so don't we all want to be a part of something that lasts? You know, it's not a flash in the pan. It lasts. It has staying power. So anyway, hopefully I've had so much fun with you. We can go for another 50 minutes.
Yeah, man. No, it's just, I always enjoy connecting with you. If it's not me reaching out to you, it's you reaching out to me. I think we're both like, you know, if it's been a couple months or whatever, one of us is going to send a text message. And I mean, dude, we're lifelong friends. So one of these days,
we're going to golf.
One of these days, we're going to golf. You know, it's crazy. So I played on, what did I play? I played Sunday and I had this tinge in my back. And I think it's probably because I did 5 days in a row of yoga. And you'd think, oh my gosh, I'm fluid and flexible. But I'm in my back, left lower part of my back, if I lift my leg, I felt this click, click, click. And it was like this little, and if I sat down or was standing, I was like addressing the ball. It was like my left side was like off. So I went to see the chiropractor and he finally got it. I mean, it worked on me for like 45 minutes, finally got it done. And then, I don't know, the day before yesterday or whatever, I played golf and my swing was like night and day difference. Like I was throwing darts, you know, and I was actually getting a full swing. I was taking like a quarter or half swing. I already have a short golf swing.
Me
but
too.
Like, I mean, and what's crazy is like, I want to hit the ball longer. And I'm with these guys that are like scratch and, you know, +1, +2, and they're hitting at 340. And I'm like, you know, 250, 260. But then I play with these guys that have like I think if you look at John Rahm, I mean, that guy has no backswing and he hits it. I mean, he's one of the longest hitters on the tour. It's crazy.
Yeah, forever. So, yeah, one of these days we're going to get together. It is good to be a fan. We'll definitely see each other at ANMPs and cross paths here and there. And, but, you know, that's one of the great things about technology, right? And one of the great things about having the phone is back in the old days, we had a phone bill and we could actually look at, I called Todd Falcone. I had a 42-minute conversation with Todd. I paid $19 for that long distance phone bill. So the world is different. There should be no excuse for someone not to connect, for someone not to care, for someone not to reach out and just say, hey, I love you. How you doing? Is life okay? And it's just great to be with you. And hopefully today we said something that can help somebody in their journey.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, thank you for being here. And guys, we're going to call that a wrap for the day. And you guys enjoy it. Thanks, Dan.
Good being with you.